Carla, you're down here in Austin. This is December the 5th, 2017. I know you are not going to be able to testify before the Attorney General tomorrow, and you have to work and everything. And, you know, a lot of people look at that as being a historic meeting because the Attorney General wants to hear from people who are complaining about the child support system, the payers. But one of the myths that I think a lot of people believe is that this is just a man's issue. It only affects men. But you have a different story, don't you?
It doesn't only affect men, it affects women also, and I am one of the women that are affected. Unfortunately, my story begins as a default divorce.
Explain what a default divorce is. What do you mean by that?
Basically, I did not show up for the final hearing, and so the divorce was ruled in favor of my ex-husband. And at the time, I was a stay-at-home mom, not really paying attention to the situation. We were still living together. And my ex-husband took control of the divorce situation. So
now, did you want the divorce originally?
No, I did not want the divorce.
So he wanted the divorce?
Yes, he wanted the divorce.
So let me get this, understand this correctly. Then he wanted the divorce, you did not want the divorce, and it went to a default divorce. You did not show up, and why did you not show up?
I didn't show up because at the time I didn't have an attorney. We were still living together, and I thought we were working through our issues. He had stated that the court dates, there had been other court dates, was just a formality, and I did not realize that that was the final court date.
So in other words, it was more like an underhanded, sneaky divorce?
Yes.
Okay.
And at the final hearing, he told them that I did not care about my kids, and I did not want anything, and so
which couldn't have been further from the truth.
Yes, and so he was granted a default divorce.
And he got custody of the children?
He got full custody of our children and pretty much everything else that we had ownership or possession of.
That must have been devastating.
It was pretty devastating, and I tried to, it has been 7 years now, and I've tried to come back from that, but as my attorney had previously said, I dug myself in a hole, and so getting out of the hole will take a long time, and you are only able to apply or ask for custody. It has to be a change in circumstance, so you can only do that every 2 years if there's a circumstantial change in circumstance, which I had done 2 years after that, but there wasn't enough change in circumstance in order to ask for custody of my children.
So it almost sounds, I want to hear you speak, but it almost sounds like he committed fraud in a certain way. Did he lie to the court on your behalf?
Well, he lied as far as not caring and not wanting to be part of my children's lives, and to be involved and have 50-50 custody.
Which is what you wanted, 50-50
yes,
custody.
and I did appeal, but because I did not show up and I was given the notices of hearing, we could not turn the divorce around. And the only thing I could do was try to file for a change in circumstance every 2 years.
Wow.
So in 2015, and after this, my ex-husband, we got back together. We moved to a different state. We were living in Ohio, and then we moved to Michigan, and that lasted about 6 months, and then he ended up meeting somebody else. But I did file for a change in circumstance, but because the change was in me and not in the children, I wasn't granted a change in custody for my children.
So it almost sounds like you're supposed to divorce that did not need to take place. Am I understanding that correctly? Because after the divorce, you got back together again.
Yes.
So it really wasn't like it was you hated each other, it was insupportability or something like that, whatever insupportability means, but it was really for whatever reason. I mean, even after you were divorced, you tried to work it back out. Yes, we were
civil, yes, until he got remarried, and then ever since then it hasn't been very civil. And part of it is that he wants to have full custody of the children. In his eyes, he never wanted to get the shaft as most fathers get and just be a weekend dad. And we had discussed it that I would never do that, even if I had primary custody, and I would always ask for 50-50 custody anyways, because I feel that both parents are equal.
Right, and both parents need to be involved in the children's lives.
Yes, in their lives.
But I think your circumstance goes beyond that, because as I understand it, you also pay child support.
I do pay child support, and in every state it has been different. As I said, I lived in near Cincinnati, Ohio. I recently moved from Michigan 2 years ago, and when I moved here to Texas, the Attorney General's office took over my case.
The Attorney General for Texas?
Yes.
Okay.
And the first thing that happened is that they would not acknowledge the payments that I had been paying in Michigan. So they said that I had a rearage that I did not have because I had been paying in Michigan. And even though I had the payment records for the Attorney General, they said that they would not recognize the payments in Michigan and that I owed a rearage here in Texas.
So you've made all your payments, and they're saying you
Yes.
didn't. And
Yes.
tell us what arrearages means and how that works in the state of Texas.
Well, when my ex-husband and I had gotten back together, even when he gained custody of them, I did have child support, but he never wanted any support, so it was never calculated. I never paid him, but I did not stop it, even though we were back together, so it accumulated. Well, when we separated again, my ex-husband took me to court. He was able to calculate that rearage, which is back child support, and on top of that, he also gained attorney fees.
That's unreal.
Yes, it was. I actually had to file for bankruptcy because he took me back to court for $12,000 in his attorney fees, and at the time I was making less than $40,000 and I could not afford it. Plus taking child support, plus living on my own in Michigan and supporting the kids, because when I did live in Michigan, I still, even though I didn't have them 50% of the time, I had them a good amount of time.
Right.
So I still had to provide clothing and food and obviously housing, and which I don't qualify since I do not have physical custody of them. I don't qualify for any of the services such as food stamps or free medical care. So, I had to do this all on my own, and luckily I've had a very supportive family that has been able to help me all these years.
So, yeah, because you mentioned that you were a stay-at-home mom, so I'm imagining then at that point that your workforce skills were not the same as your ex-husband's would have been, because he was in the workforce the entire
Yes.
time.
Yes.
Which also means that your earning capacity was a lot less.
Yes, I've had to restart from the bottom and slowly work myself up. And since he has moved, we've moved 3 different states since the divorce. I've had to restart jobs, because I follow my children.
Okay, because you want to be in their lives.
I want to be in their lives, and luckily Texas is, once you have a order, it's pretty hard to move, and now my children are getting older, so hopefully this is where, we stay in the long term.
So can I ask you the ages of your children, or is that personal right now?
They're 9 and 13.
So 9 and 13, okay. So this might seem another personal question, but your ex-husband is in the workforce.
Yes.
How much money does he make compared to you? Is that a question that I can ask? Is that a fair question? Or?
Yes. I make now about $40,000. I just was able to, I always looking for opportunities. I was able to get a new opportunity, a new position to bring me up a little bit more, but I'm still at the bottom, restarting. But my ex-husband makes at least $150,000 to $200,000 a year.
And you pay him child support?
And I pay him child support. He also works at home, and his wife is a stay-at-home mom, and they have 5 children between them. But like I said, he's the primary breadwinner, and we live in a pretty affluential area, and I have to live there in order to be in the lives of my children.
So there's a couple of things I want to ask you then as well. 2 children, how much do you pay in child support?
I pay $915.
$915. So you're talking about almost $10,000, well, over $10,000 a year.
Yes, I think last year it came out to maybe close to $20,000.
Why did it come out to $20,000?
I'm not sure, but when I look
arrearages?
It could be the rearages,
And
yes.
when you get an arrearages, what type of interest do they charge you?
Well, and here in the state of Texas, unless you make a deal with the other party, you're able to pay it back until they're 18 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
But during mediation, my ex wanted it paid within 2 years, and I think that's usually what people are supposed to pay it back is 2 years. But if you have you've worked a deal with your attorney, you can take a longer amount of time before the children turn 18.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to pay back this rearage within 2 years. So that's added on close to another $300, I think.
So you're talking about
$253.
approximately $15,000 a year.
Yes.
Is what you're looking at, but you only make $40,000 gross.
Yes.
So you're looking at $25,000 gross.
Yes.
I'm just trying to figure this out. How do you make it?
I don't. I live with my mom in the area where we live near Dallas, and she is 74 years old. She retired to move here to live with me to help me out, and she has actually gone back to work.
Your mother sounds like a wonderful person.
She is. She is a great support system, and I would never be able to make it without her. So we are both working in order to make it and pay the rent and pay the bills. The kids are getting older. They're involved in sports. I'm supposed to pay 50% of their sports activities and uniforms and everything else, but I can't afford it. I can barely afford the rent.
You know, in the state of Texas, if you fall behind on child support, the Attorney General has a number of weapons in his arsenal to help you comply. One of the weapons could be that you would not be able to get your driver's license renewed. Yes. You could possibly not get your vehicle registration renewed. You could be thrown into prison.
Yes.
Have any of these things happened to you?
No, but what did happen is when I started this new position, I did not make the direct deposit cut, so I was cut a check. So what the Attorney General did is they took my whole entire paycheck on November 8th, and it took them...
Wait, November 8th was just last month?
Yes, and I hadn't received a paycheck since the end of September. So for October and November, I had zero income. I had my kids during that time. I still had zero income. I've had to borrow. My mom has helped me out. I contacted the Attorney General's office, and they said that after they took their 51%, then they were going to send me the rest. And this was a phone call that I talked to him on November 8th. What took a phone call to my local representative, Tan Parker, to finally get some action.
Well, I'm glad, Tan, you've got a good representative there.
Yes, and he has helped me before. He helped me with the issue that I had with the state of Texas, and acknowledging that I had paid child support in Michigan. And when I contacted Tan, or Mr. Parker, the Office of Attorney General acknowledged all the money that I had paid in Michigan. But Representative Parker, when I contacted him a few weeks ago, they got right on it. They talked to the Office of Attorney General, and suddenly my check was being mailed out.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't get it till after Thanksgiving, in which I had my children for 10 days during that Thanksgiving period
and
with
no money.
Absolutely no money.
This is incredible. So are you still paying, when you have your children, you're still paying child support?
Yes, I still pay child support.
Even though they were living with you? This is incredible. This seems like a system that, but you know what is even worse? I hope I don't hurt your feelings or make you cry about this, but some people would label you a deadbeat, right?
They would, if I didn't pay child support, yes.
But I mean, yeah. But I mean, you've had, okay, you're right. Because you've not fallen behind. You've begged, well, I would say begged, borrowed, and steal, but you haven't stolen. So
yes,
I mean, you've done the begged and the borrowing.
Yes.
And fortunately, it's because your 74-year-old mother has come out of retirement to help.
And I provide the same, or I try to provide the same quality lifestyle that my ex-husband does, but there's a lot of things that I can't do.
Yeah.
So it's helped alienate, especially my older daughter, because she can't understand why I don't have money, why I have to say no. It's, you're so mean, you know, why won't you? And I just don't have money to even give you $20 to go to the movies. I mean, when we're together, we do things at home.
Right.
When we lived back in Michigan, we did a lot of outdoor things, just free things, because I can't afford to do it. I can't take them on vacation. You know, I can't do things that normal parents, when they have their kids, would do. Even buy clothing, you know, I can buy you a shirt this paycheck, and then, you know, a pair of pants or a jacket in 2 more paychecks. And I don't qualify for any type of the help because I am a non-custodial parent.
So, in other words, as a non-custodial parent, I almost like to say the non-custodial parent, which I hate the term, second-class citizen.
Yes, pretty much. And that's how I feel when people ask me, well, why don't you have custody of your children? Well, and that's another reason that when I moved here from Michigan to Texas, I filed for full custody of the children, and we had to go to mediation. But because I did not have the financial means to go all the way to trial, this would have been a change in circumstance, I could have had 50% of my.
How much would it have cost you?
At least $50,000 by what my attorney said.
50?
And I have already spent close to $60,000.
Did you feel that you're being abused by the, I would like to, obviously by the legal system, by the family law system, by the family courts, by everything that happened. The divorce was a complete fraud. It was an abuse of justice. The Attorney General's office, when I was growing up, there was one time I was like 20 years old or something like that. I was going to school in Canada, and I had a situation that I actually, when I came back to the States, I wrote to the Attorney General. It was a small business transaction. It's only for like $100. And the Attorney General wrote to the business owner and said, I would suggest that you honor your commitment to Mr. Morgan. So my thought was always, the Attorney General would seek to do what's right.
Yes.
The Attorney General would be the person that would advocate for what's right.
Yes.
But from what I hear you saying,
no,
it seems like it's just the opposite. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's correct. I feel that if the Attorney General would do something that would be beneficial to all of us, non-custodial parents, it would be to make me an equal. Whether it's because I help in everything, I'm always there for my kids. I'm not a deadbeat, parent.
Right.
But I feel like I can't provide, and that I'm being alienated from my children because I can't provide. So
in other words, they're actually assisting in the alienation process.
Yes, of my children. And if I had more means, then I could have asked for half custody, or possibly if they have me pay less child support, then I could provide more things for my children, and I wouldn't be so alienated.
There is a saying that you can get as much justice as you can afford to buy.
Yes.
I always thought that justice was supposed to be different than actually having to buy justice. But from what I hear you saying, that's not the case.
No. And I do have a great attorney. He is very helpful out of the Dallas area, and he understands. He was also an alienated father, so he understands the situation, and he's let me, make payments, and he's helped me in every case that I've had, because my ex-husband has constantly brought me to court on different
Can you mention
issues.
this? Do you want to feel free to mention his name? Because
Sure.
there's always people that are looking for attorneys that are not just out there to exploit them. And I mean, when you hear, I've heard of some attorneys, and I'm like, I want that person's name. I want people to know that there are some good ones out there, because so many they try to financially exploit you.
No, Luke Gunsax, and he's in Dallas, Texas, has been a great advocate for me. He's understood. He's followed me since I came from Michigan. He's been at my side. He's always very helpful. And like I said, he's been very understanding as far as payments, and I believe in him, and he's helped lots of other families.
So you have a little bit of a support system. You have your mother.
Yes.
You have this great attorney.
Yes.
There was something else, I forgot what it was I was going to mention. There was a third thing that Tan Parker.
Yes.
So,
Representative Tan Parker.
but then there are many people that aren't such as fortunate. What happens to them? I mean, I hear about people, mothers and fathers, who commit suicide because of the situation. I hear about mothers and fathers who experience legal abuse syndrome, kind of like a PTSD. I hear about people that have been thrown in. I'm just talking with a man tonight. He said, I've been thrown in jail 3 times. Last time was 25 days. I was in the nonviolent place. First day in there, I saw one of the guards pick up a young person, slam him to the ground. He came out in a stretcher. For what I think he lost his job or something. He couldn't make his child support. He got thrown into prison. He could have been leaving in a stretcher. You're criminalizing people for poverty. Yeah. But you have the support group, but so many people don't.
Yeah, and I've been fortunate enough, but I have many days, and weeks that I am upset, that I think about, giving up and just, maybe making a deal. And not seeing my children anymore, because it is difficult. It's difficult when I get my paycheck and I know that I may not be able to buy Christmas gifts for my children because I have to pay the rent and the bills. But I make a good amount of money, but 50% of my income goes to my ex-husband. When I see him taking $5,000, trips for summer vacations, he travels with them, they go out to dinner all the time. I'm not able to do any of that.
Right.
And so it's very frustrating because I am a good mom.
Yeah.
And I'm there for my kids. I provide as much as I can, but financially, it's so frustrating. I have a master's degree. I'm well respected. I've had great jobs in every community that I've been fortunate enough to have great jobs in every state that I've lived in. But it's also frustrating for me. And the only reason that I don't get out of child support is, of course, they take it directly out of my check. So, and I have to, work. But I provide extra things all the time. I take my kids, to the doctor, the dentist. I get their hair cut. I take them, any needs that they may have.
Right.
As much as I can, and sometimes it's a struggle.
Yeah. So Carla, I mean, I've talked with a number of women who've gone through similar things. I mean, people that have gone to deep depression. I mean, like I said, all on the verge of suicide. I mean,
Yes.
I talk with people that are there, and I mean, people that have said, "Don't do it." It's not worth it. You've got to be there for your children, and men as well that have said, "I'm just what you said. I'm going to cut. I can't do this anymore because it's killing me."
It is.
But it's also killing your children. There was a book that came out recently. I don't know if you've read it, but it's called Primal Loss: The Adult Children of Divorce Speak. And they talk about, because one of the myths in our society today is that children are resilient. Children will always bounce back.
Yeah.
And what this book shows, they interviewed like 70 adults that were children of divorce, and what they said is that we were not resilient, we were silenced. And then now 25, 30 years later, they're starting to write about it and talking about how they were crushed, how it led to antisocial behavior, how it led to destructive behavior, how it led to, loneliness, fear, loss of faith in God, loss of faith in family. I lost my friends. All of these things that have happened. I don't have the strong relationship with my brothers and sisters anymore, with my mother or my father, with my grandparents. It's a shame. For the meeting tomorrow, we will be meeting with the Attorney General, and I know you would love to be able to speak there. I know that you can't. I know that only a few people can, but we will be posting the video for him to see it, and I hope for all of Texas to see it, because yours is a real struggle. You're a wonderful mom, and yet you feel like you're being victimized.
Yes.
By the government, by your ex-spouse, by the family. Fortunately, you've got a family law attorney that is one of the good ones.
Because without him, I wouldn't have been able to get as far as I have.
And any advice for people in your situation? Because you have a support group, but I mean, what advice would you give to somebody in your situation?
You have to keep going. You can't give up, because if we can change even just a little bit, it will change for future generations, and our future generation could be our children. We don't want our children to be going through this.
Right.
And you have to be strong for your children. Your children love you, and you can't give up.
So you've said the same thing I've said. I do not want to see my children or my grandchildren become statistics.
Yes.
And victims. And, when you go through some of this stuff, the only way I know how to say evil can be overcome is by trying to pay it forward.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what you're doing.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best. Thank you.